coming that threatens our kingdom.
We are dahomey!
Don't know, take my power.
Holy shit.
Well, hello, kiddies. This is your friendly neighborhood watchman, here with you again to talk to you about The Woman King. Now, yes, I know this movie came out last year, and I had intended to make a rather detailed video about it, about the Hollywood film and their interpretation of history on the Dahomey tribe. But unfortunately, the timing wasn't good at all. As we started moving into a new home, and by the time it was all said and done, and we could settle down a little bit, a few weeks had passed. So it just got pushed to the back burner. It was disappointing as I had a lot of research done on it, but it gave me the decision to just put mine up. And for anyone that's still interested, I just wanted, for the record, make my opinions known. So instead, I'm just going to go about this differently and just read a short article and share a few of my opinions and read some comments from the readers of this article. So without further delay, let's just dive into this one. So from Yahoo, it's the byline Amira Castilla, and the title of the article is Viola Davis told y'all The Woman King isn't a history lesson. So here are some facts. So don't let their gorgeous looks fool you. They are vicious. One of this year's, I should say last year's, most anticipated film, The Woman King, has come under fire for its failure to address the Dahomey Kingdom's involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, leading social media to create #BoycottWomanKing. Viola Davis, who plays the main character, Nanisca, and other cast members have responded to the criticism by acknowledging that historical accuracy was not and cannot be the job of Hollywood. Because ultimately, the focus is on entertainment. Oh, really? So here's a short history lesson you didn't get in the movie. Take notes. Funny how they feel that way because they got called out on their bogus history. Who were the Agoji and how were they involved in the slave trade? The Dahomey Kingdom in present-day Benin trafficked slaves in the 1600s and 1700s. King Gezo, played by John Boyega in the film, had most enslaved people sent abroad, while others were kept in the kingdom to serve. In 1852, the king stopped slave trading due to the British government's disapproval after they abolished slavery in 1833. Ooh, you got that? Some white folks abolished slavery, which was the only reason this African king stopped slave trading. Temporarily, though, as you'll learn in a moment. In the period during which they ceased trading, they participated in palm oil production. However, it was not earning the king nearly as much money as slave trading, so trading continued. The Agoji women lived in the Dahomey Kingdom and first emerged as an all-female group in the early 1700s to do elephant hunting. They slowly expanded into a full-fledged army well into the 19th century, possibly due to a drop in the kingdom's male population. The Dahomey sold thousands of Africans into slavery, and people of all ages were bound to be shipped to several parts of the world. The Agoji would sneak up on surrounding kingdoms and capture people to be put in the slave trade for profit through their relationships with European merchants. American author Zora Neale Hurston wrote the book Barracoon, The Story of the Last Black Cargo in 1928, which is an interview with one of the last known slaves brought to the United States in 1860 via the transatlantic slave trade. His name was Cudjoe Lewis, and he was 19 years old when he was taken from his home by the Agoge woman. As Lewis recounted his interaction with the Agoge, he crouched down in fear, describing the terrifying event when the woman killed his family and took him captive, saying, "No man can be so strong like the women soldiers from Dahomey." The Dahomey kingdom's reign eventually ended in 1892 due to losing a war against the French when they claimed Dahomey's land through the Berlin Conference's scramble for Africa in the 1880s. Although the movie glossed over a gruesome part of the Dahomey kingdom's history, it can be argued that Hollywood's historical fiction films are an entry point, piquing the audience's interest to take the time and learn this history for themselves. Yeah, try to put a positive spin on it. How many people actually do take the time to learn the actual facts for themselves? Not many, because tell you, man, we got millions of people out there just sharing their ignorance on social media. I remember Cudjoe Lewis when I was researching this, as I mentioned, when I was going to do an in-depth video on the Dahomey. I mean, his family was killed, and they were brutal, cutting heads off and carrying them around as trophies. As I mentioned, I have these articles I was going through, and I'll leave a link, as I had said, in the description. Here we have a pro-film article. To go over it very briefly, kudos to the whole team of The Woman King, and let's hope Dana Stevens, the screenwriter, pens us even more fascinating tales. Last but not least, more power to the woman and the black community worldwide. Because let's focus on skin color. We don't do that enough. So, done with this, I'll leave links. Here I shall read briefly this paragraph from the Smithsonian Magazine. At its height in the 1840s, the West African kingdom of Dahomey boasted an army so fierce that its enemies spoke of its, quote, prodigious bravery, end quote. This 6,000-strong force, known as the Agoge, raided villages under cover of darkness, took captives, and slashed off resistors' heads to return to their king as trophies of war. Through these actions, the Agoge established Dahomey's preeminence over neighboring kingdoms. The Woman King, a no longer new movie starring Viola Davis as a fictionalized, yes, fiction, leader of the Agoge, tells the story of this old woman fighting force. Directed by Gina Prince Bythewood, the film takes place as conflict engulfs the region and the specter of European colonization looms ominously. Funny as ominous when it comes to Europeans, but there's nothing ominous about the Dahomey tribe terrorizing and murdering and enslaving other Africans from neighboring tribes. After all, what's so ominous about that, right? But anyway, let's hit these comments, shall we? We'll go through a few of them. So to begin, we got one from Ash. Wait, the same Viola Davis who said she regretted being in The Help because she said it didn't tell the right story? But now Hollywood isn't to be held accountable for depicting history, but is strictly entertainment? Yeah, exactly. Bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of double talk and hypocrisy. Make up your mind. She is getting called out now for what she's accused others of and can't take it. You got that right. This one from Lance. One of this year's most anticipated films. Is it? Is it really? Somehow I don't think so. $50 million budget with a current box office gross of $38 million. Doesn't sound like, quote, anticipation, end quote, to me. Good point. From John, quote, Viola Davis, who plays the main character, Nanisca, and other cast members have responded to the criticism by acknowledging that historical accuracy was not and cannot be the job of Hollywood, because ultimately the focus is on entertainment, end quote. Of course it can't, says John, not when it disputes the woke liberals' version of historical facts. Touché, John. From Walking the Plank, Walking the Plank, be real. The producers, Davis and others, realize they must look like fools, richer fools now perhaps, but fools at this point, given that they endeavored to make a feel-good heroic movie based on African slavers, and I think there's a scramble to put a good face on what is now being pushed as historical fiction, a term I wasn't hearing a few weeks before release. No, not until they received negative criticism. In addition to slavery, back when slavery was worth fighting for in Africa, I guess, film celebrates forced soldiering by teenage and preteen girls. How many teen or preteen girls does anyone know that desire to be sent into lethal combat? Combat to protect a tribe's survival based on slavery. The truth makes for a riveting and enlightening film. Ironically, however, this film may be among the top in terms of whitewashing, blackwashing, or whatever washing applies here. An odd film release given today's hypersensitivities over glossing over history, etc. It's because that woman, when she was visiting Benin, overheard this history. She thought it was cool, strong females, strong women, able to wage war. This is typically male-dominated stuff here. So, jumped right into it without really researching, and it bit them in the ass. Let me find the article here. Just to give you some receipts. It was Mario Bello. Hey, I thought about it, but with all these pronouns running around, I read it as it was written. But
whatever.
Who first conceived the idea for the Woman King several years ago. Her journey to Benin, a country in Western Africa where the kingdom of Dahomey was formerly located, led her into the rich history of the Agoji. It's a caricature. So you get the typical white liberal woman.
Stay on target.
But enough of that. Back to the comments. Quote, historical accuracy was not and cannot be the job of Hollywood because ultimately the focus is on entertainment. End quote. Boy, this comment is getting quoted a lot, isn't it? Let's just hope you all remember this from now on. Yeah. They're hypocrites. They won't. From Thomas, the true story of slavery in the world history would never be told, as the loudest voices are not interested in truth, but just interested in loud. They're interested in virtue signaling and being woke. From Dax, well, that's not what she, Viola Davis, or the showrunners was saying in the beginning. In the beginning, laugh out loud. In fact, that was the entire marketing strategy, at first anyway. In fact, this new narrative only came out after the history of this tribe went viral for all the wrong reasons. You got that right. When you have black and white people agree on something, when you have liberals and conservatives, well, some liberals, agree on something, you know you have a very real problem. The Woman King has a very real problem. Absolutely true. From Next World, saying that it's entertainment does not relieve the filmmaker from making an attempt to get basic facts about the misery that the Dahomey kingdom inflicted on its African neighbors. Exactly. From Bill, black African tribes traded and sold black slaves, used them as slaves. It's always conveniently omitted from much of history today, as the preferred theme is white slavers. Indigenous peoples in Central and South America were enslaved by Spanish conquerors, forced to work in precious metal mines as servants and load-bearers. Former black slaves in the American South founded the nation of Liberia and promptly enslaved the locals in the process. Slavery has been part of every culture since the beginning of humankind, and sadly, is still here. Danny and Brandy H. Indigenous peoples were also enslaved by other tribes and kingdoms, as well as being used for human sacrifices by some. History is much more messy than people like to think about. Easier to blame one group. Yep, you're both correct. From Jeff, well, the facts sure are inconvenient. Yeah, man, you said it. Paul, this cuts into the liberal progressive narrative that America created slavery, which everyone knew was not true. So if you want money for slavery, get it from Africa. Paul's talk about reparations, and rightly so. Well, folks, we can go on. I mean, there are a bunch of comments here. So, my friends, with that said, we come to the end of this video. Please comment, like, and subscribe. If you haven't already, just smash that like button, as if you were an Agoji warrior. And click that notification bell so that you'll always be forewarned whenever I'm about to drop another video. And as always, stay safe, and I bid you peace.